So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Tara Institute Monday nights. My name is Anjali, and I'm presenting the Monday night sessions for this month. I see a lot of familiar faces. Anyone here for the first time tonight? Welcome, welcome. So just very quickly, particularly for our new friends tonight, Monday night sessions are a combination of teachings on a particular topic. So we pick a particular topic for a month. We meet every Monday evening. The sessions are a combination of meditations as well as conversation and dialogue. And I guess for the benefit of, so I generally begin with what we call a shamatha meditation or a single-pointed meditation, just to calm the mind. Then I will probably do a brief summary or recap of our last session, just to bring to mind for those who had attended, but also for those who are here for the first time. And then we continue with the session. Please feel free to ask questions, or if there's any comments that you have. I don't mind being interrupted. I can't promise that I'll have the answers, but I don't mind being interrupted. Together we'll find the answers, I'm sure. So, as I said, we first begin with a single-pointed meditation. And tonight we'll be doing a meditation similar to last week's, which is focusing on the breath. The main purpose of the meditation would be to settle our minds and calm our minds. It's the end of a Monday. And all sorts of things have happened through the day. So just settling our minds, just trying to be more in the present, so that we are able to engage with the ideas or Buddhist thoughts that we are going to talk about. I will talk us through the meditation, so I will be talking you through the right posture for the meditation. And then I will lead us into setting a motivation for our session. And we talked about motivation and the importance of setting a motivation before any Buddhist teaching or practice. But, essentially and very simply, it's just setting a positive intention for what we are about to undertake in this session. And we generally believe that the best motivation is a bodhicitta motivation, which is a motivation of developing loving kindness for all sentient beings so that we can be of benefit to them. But you are free to set any other motivations that you would like to for yourselves for this session. Just a brief mention of the mental tools that we use to help us through the meditation. It's hard for us to focus on one particular object, even for experienced students, and it's really, really hard to maintain focus on a single object because our minds are habituated to racing thoughts. I once had a teacher who said, if we brought to our tongue the thoughts that pass through our minds, and if someone heard us, or if we heard ourselves, we would book ourselves into an institution. So it's racing all the time. So don't worry, it's not you're not the only one. We use two particular tools to try and maintain focus. The first one is the tool of mindfulness. And so mindfulness just means memory, just means remembering. So remember your object of attention or focus. Remember that it is the breath where you're meant to keep your attention. Like I said, you will lose, in all probability, within a few seconds or a minute, your focus of attention. And then you use the other tool, which is the tool of alertness or awareness, which all of us have. And whenever you become aware of the fact that your mind has drifted to something else, don't be frustrated, don't be annoyed, don't be upset. Just very gently guide it back to the breath. And you will, even if you end up doing it dozens of times during a 5-minute meditation or a 4-minute meditation, doesn't matter. The point is that the more we do it, the more often we do it, the more habituated we will become, and the easier it will be for us to do this meditation. And apart from using this meditation as a grounding exercise, it's also a meditation that helps us develop our concentration and our abilities to pay attention and focus on a particular topic. And that's why the monks or the lamas used to do it, to sharpen their abilities to concentrate. And then they would use this sharp concentration to meditate on more profound ideas and develop their realizations. Any questions thus far, particularly from our newly joined friends? So just relax and just follow me as I guide us through the meditation, and remember to try and stay alert and aware. So we begin with adopting the right posture, and I will describe the right posture for the meditation. You can be sitting on a chair or on the floor. It really doesn't matter, wherever you're more comfortable. If you're sitting on a chair, the only advice is to place both your feet flat on the floor. So begin with the spine or your back. Keep your back straight. Imagine there is a string running from the base of your spine all the way up to the crown of your head, pulling you up very gently, naturally straightening your spine. Relax your shoulders and the muscles around your back. Relax your neck and your jaw. Place your hands resting in your lap or on your knees, palms up, with the tips of your thumbs touching gently. Place your elbows slightly away from the body, allowing the air to flow through. Tilt your neck slightly downwards. Your eyes can be slightly open, looking at the ground in front of you, or you can keep your eyes shut, whichever is more comfortable. Relax your jaw. Place your tongue touching the upper part of your palate, just behind the top teeth. And finally, allow the muscles and the tension held in your face to just relax. Once you're comfortable in your posture, we can set a motivation, an intention for our practice. If you are comfortable, you can generate a wish or a motivation of becoming enlightened like the Buddha, to be able to help all living beings. Or you can generate a wish to benefit other beings, help them be relieved of their suffering and the causes of their suffering. Help them have greater peace and happiness and the causes of those. Remembering that this may not be something that you will attain in this session, or even in this lifetime. But by keeping it firmly in your mind, you ensure that all your subsequent effort is a step in that direction. Take a few moments to set your motivation. And now gently bring your attention to your breath. Becoming aware of your breath in your body. You can focus your attention at either of 2 points, at your abdomen as it rises and falls with your in-breath and your out-breath. Or you can rest your attention at the tip of your nose and observe the sensations that your breath forms there as it flows in and out. Pick one of the 2 spots and stick with whatever you choose in every session. That is the recommendation. So allowing your mind to come to rest on the breath, follow the breath for the entire in-breath and the entire out-breath. Do not force the breath. Do not go chasing after it. Just become a quiet observer of your breath. your mind. If it has wandered, just bring your attention gently back to your breath. And gently bring your attention to the room. So just a quick recap of our session last week. We introduced the topic of impermanence as described in Buddhist texts. We talked about impermanence being a foundational Buddhist idea. Firstly, because it's easily understood and easily, well, I don't know about easily understood, but easily verifiable. We don't need faith or any deep beliefs in any particular religion, or if we just use our intellect, we can verify that it does exist. We also talked about the fact that the idea of impermanence lays the grounds for understanding other more complex Buddhist ideas like emptiness and so on and so forth. And then we talked about the first seal of Buddhism, which is stated as all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. And we explained all conditioned phenomena as being phenomena that are produced or put together or compiled or constructed. And examples of conditioned phenomena can be animate or inanimate objects. They can be physical objects like our bodies, or this building, or this table, or this microphone, or they can be mental states, the thoughts we have, the feelings we have, the emotions we have. They can be environmental phenomena like seasons, or the rain, or rainbows. Or they can be spiritual states like attaining enlightenment, or attaining calm, or improving your concentrating ability. So all of these sort of phenomena are described as conditioned phenomena because they arise as a result of causes and conditions coming together. And then we described two types of impermanence. Oh, actually, before that, we went into details about what impermanence means. And we discussed that impermanence, probably a better word for impermanence is transience, or non-static, or constantly changing, rather than something existing and not existing, or not existing. And so, coming back to the first seal of Buddhism, everything that is produced, everything that results from things coming together, everything that is constructed, including ourselves, and everything around us, is subject to change, is transient, is changing, in a state of flux, not stable, not solid, not unchanging. And it's easy to understand this because everything that is produced or constructed or conditioned comes about as a result of causes and conditions, and because the causes and conditions are changing, the things in themselves change and are not transient. We also gave some examples that make it clear that in the arising of a cause lies the cause of its cessation. So as an example, a seed is a cause for a sapling. But the minute a seed with the right causes and conditions gives rise to a sapling, it stops being a seed, and now the sapling becomes the cause for a tree. And when the sapling gives rise to a tree, it stops being the cause because it's now changed into a tree, and now the new cause is the tree, which then becomes the cause for firewood. So causes and conditions arise and cease. Nothing needs to happen from outside to make it cease. In the arising of the cause, there is cessation, and a new cause arises. That's how nature works, and this is something to dwell upon and think upon. And so because of this, there is constant moment-to-moment change. But there's two major types of change, or transience, or impermanence that we encounter. The first is the gross impermanence, which is change at a macro level, at a level that we can see or visualize or feel. And this generally is experienced when there is the break of a continuum of something. So I exist, and then I die, and I stop to exist. So that there is a break in the continuum of Anjali. And this is easy to see. Or we have this building, and it gets demolished, and it ceases to exist. So there's a break in the continuum, we can see it, this is gross change. But we know that there's another kind of change which is called subtle impermanence, where there's moment-to-moment changes which are not as easily visualized or experienced. But they're happening even when things appear to be solid or unchanging. Yourselves sitting here today. While you're sitting here, although it appears that you're not changing, you're not moving, nothing's happening, but you are. Your thoughts are changing, your feelings are changing, your emotions are changing. The cells in your body are regenerating. You're changing moment to moment. So subtle impermanence is something that's better realized or understood by meditating or thinking about it, rather than by sort of visualization by the senses. But it is subtle impermanence that actually enables gross impermanence. Gross impermanence will not occur until these subtle changes occur. So one day we turn 60, we look into the mirror and we see a wrinkle or a grey hair, and we think, oh, I've become old. But we haven't become old when we turn 60. We've been aging since the moment after we were born. But we just could not see it. but it's been happening. Or the imperceptible shifts in friendship over time. So relationships are a good thing to meditate on when we think of impermanence, how our relationships change over time. Or how the color in your favorite shirt, fades over time. But you don't notice it unless it's a gross change. And then we also discussed last time that because we don't normally see transience and impermanence in ourselves and things around us, in fact we live our lives as if things would never change, as if things are permanent. We project a permanence onto impermanent phenomena, and that becomes, and when that doesn't deliver, when change occurs, which is inevitable, suffering occurs. So we talked about transience or impermanence being a cause of our suffering. But we also said that impermanence is not just about loss, because in the ability to change lies the potential for good to come as well. So if someone who was depressed had no hope of changing into a happy person, that would be a sad state to be in. So in the ability to change is the potential for change for better as well. So if we didn't have the hope of change, we could never hope to be Buddha, or we could never hope to be enlightened. Or blossoms would never change to fruit, or the caterpillar would never turn into a butterfly. So it's not just about loss, it's about understanding the true nature of existence, so we can deal with it better. So that's where we were up to, the last session. Anyone who was here last week, have you had a chance or opportunity to think more about it? Any comments, questions? That's okay. I'm sure you've thought about it, but feel free to pipe in whenever you want to. So this evening, I will talk a little bit more about how impermanence exists in and around us, before we then talk about how it gives rise to suffering for us. It's important to it is easy to have an intellectual understanding of impermanence because it seems very intuitive, and it's hard to differ or debate. But for something to the idea of listening to teachings or reading about what Buddha taught is really to transform our minds, because it's only once we transform our minds and the way we habitually think that change is possible, which is probably what all of us are seeking, or that or that we can lead better lives, that we can use the teachings to improve our lives or make our lives happier. And the teachings tell us that for an idea to become, to help to transform the way we live, we have to have deep convictions and realizations. Because only when something turns from an idea to a conviction does it then arise naturally. So at the moment we go about our lives, impermanence is far from our mind, but something may trigger the idea, or we may remember, we heard about impermanence, maybe this is what's at play here. But it's not something that's intuitive, it's not something that arises without effort, because at this point it's not a deep conviction, it's not a realization. But the teachings tell us that if we study and reflect and meditate on any idea, it can become a realization. And when something becomes a realization, what that means is it is in our nature. It arises spontaneously. And that's where we all hope to get with any ideas that we are convinced about. So with that in mind, I'm going to lead us into an analytic meditation about impermanence or transience. And what this, so again, just reminding everyone that an analytic meditation, unlike a single-pointed meditation, is a meditation where we are actively thinking. So we are thinking about an idea, and we are exploring the idea, just to deepen our understanding and our conviction. So the meditation that I'm going to do has been it's been penned by Asanga, who was a very famous Indian Buddhist monk and scholar. He has penned many significant works and texts and commentaries, and so the meditation that I'm going to talk us through is from a text called Shravaka Bhumi, and essentially what Asanga is talking about is what he calls the 5 attributes of impermanence, or the 5 ways in which impermanence presents itself or reveals itself to us in our lives. So, adopt a comfortable position. Close your eyes. Take a minute to calm the mind, and just follow with me as I guide you through the 5 aspects of impermanence. The first aspect of impermanence is the impermanence of change. That is coarse impermanence, and refers to changes that are easy to observe. Our bodies are born and die. Our health, appearance, and physique may change as a result of injury or illness or aging. Everything in our environment, trees, buildings, cities, all the objects we use, food, transportation, medicine, and clothing, they're all consumed or destroyed. The fleeting character of our happy, suffering, and neutral feelings, and the swiftness by which our thoughts change from one moment to the next, are also examples of coarse change. The objects we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and think about all change, as do the cognitive faculties that enable us to apprehend them. Spend a few minutes thinking about that and bring to mind examples that are relevant to you of this type of impermanence. The second aspect of impermanence is called the impermanence of perishability. And this refers to subtle impermanence. Contemplate that the coarse change we see could not occur without subtle, moment-to-moment change. They need no cause other than their arising to bring their disintegration. Perishing is in their very nature. When bodies are young, they're youthful and attractive. But as they get older, they lose that beauty and take on a different appearance. On the mental level, knowledge, skills, and abilities can deteriorate. Someone may be intelligent and sharp when younger, but as they age, they become forgetful and may even lose some of the knowledge or skills they once had. As soon as something comes into existence, it starts to change. As it changes, it gets older. It becomes perishable. And eventually it will disintegrate, die, or go out of existence altogether. We may think that a volcano erupts suddenly, when in fact the pressure inside it has been building imperceptibly for a long time. We see the sun rise and set, but it goes across the sky moment by moment. The third aspect of impermanence is the impermanence of separation. Reflect on the changeability of our personal situations and how, without choice, we sometimes separate from desirable circumstances. For example, at one point in life we may be healthy, but then we become ill. At one point we may have freedom and independence, but later we may lose that freedom. Because of illness or age, we may become dependent on others for even basic things like eating, bathing, or going to the bathroom. We may have a happy, flourishing relationship at one point in time, but then circumstances change. That relationship may fall apart, or the person may pass away. The relationship itself disappears. The fourth aspect is the impermanence of the nature of things. This means that even if we are not experiencing the impermanence of change or the impermanence of separation at this moment, we will in the future. we may not be experiencing separation from the things we cherish right now, but inevitably, at some point, that impermanence will occur. There is no way we can continue to have whatever good circumstances we may have had. Because the very nature of everything in samsara is change. The fifth aspect of impermanence is the impermanence of the present. This is the perishability and separation that we presently undergo. Changes are happening today, this hour, this very moment. Each moment arises and immediately ceases, becoming the past and no longer existing. That means we are constantly separating from the present moment. Whatever experiences we had in a moment slip into the past and become just memories. Try to recognize how in each and every moment of our life there is change and separation taking place. Gently bring your attention back to the room. I hope that wasn't too rushed, but I just wanted to give you an idea of in what ways impermanence reveals itself, things that we would not think about in the normal course. Did anyone find that disheartening or discouraging or sad or unhappy, or why do I have to think about I've had a hard day and now I come here and have to think about sorry? Yeah, yes. So I guess so that's, those are very relevant thoughts and very relevant questions. Why do we even have to think about things like this? And over the course of the month, hopefully by the end of the month, we would have seen benefit in thinking about things like this. But maybe at this point, I think I'd like to just briefly share with you Buddha's life story. So I'm not sure, a lot of you have probably read about Buddha's story, or are we familiar? Some of us, yes. But essentially, Buddha was born a prince. He was a prince by the name of Siddhartha Gautama. And his father was the ruler of a kingdom called Kapilavastu, which is a kingdom bordering India and Nepal. And when he was born, a sage prophesied that this young boy will become one of two things. He will either be a great king and monarch and ruler, or he will become an ascetic and a Buddha. the enlightened one. And his father, the king, much preferred the first option. And so Buddha led a very sheltered life. He wasn't allowed out of the palace. All he saw was pleasure and luxury. He was married. He had a child, and then one day when he was, he had never seen any suffering of any sort. He was completely sheltered. It is said that he had 3 different palaces for 3 different seasons. In India, you have only 3 seasons. You don't have the 4 seasons. So that's the kind of life he led. And then when he was a young man, he once convinced his charioteer to take him to town one night for a ride, because he'd never been outside the palace. And very famously, when he went out to town, he saw 3 sights. He saw an old man for the first time, and he saw a sick man for the first time, and he saw a funeral procession or a corpse for the first time. And so this was his first encounter with not just death and dying, but impermanence. And he was filled and overwhelmed with sadness and compassion for the human condition. And he was basically, he obviously must have talked about it, and he was told that no one can escape this, not even a prince. And he was completely overcome with horror and sadness and compassion. And so his encounter with impermanence led him into his future quest. He was unwilling to accept this as the fate of the human condition, and he was unwilling to accept that this is what all of us were born for. And fortunately for us, after years of meditation, he had realizations, and he understood how to avoid suffering and how to be free from this cycle of birth, death, and sickness. And he was kind enough to share his teaching. So I guess the point is that it's important for us, if we want to lead happier lives, it's important for us firstly to understand what the malady is, what is causing the suffering. Why are we... and again, suffering is a very strong word. I get that. So when we think of suffering, we think of something very extreme. But in fact, when Buddha talked about suffering, or when Buddhist teachings talk about suffering, it's not just suffering in a very visceral sense, or pain, or all those extreme kinds of things that come to mind, but it also refers to things like discontent or dissatisfaction, or the feeling that you're never completely satisfied. There's a bit of disquiet or anxiety or confusion about things. So all of those things get in the way of us leading happy lives. And so it's important to understand the causes of our suffering before we are then motivated to look for how to help ourselves or help people around us. And so what Buddha said was that all things arise and pass away, and suffering arises when we cling to what cannot last. Freedom arises when we understand impermanence and we let go. So Buddha gave a lot of teachings after his realizations, but some key teachings were about mistaken views. What Buddha suggested and told us was that we have some misapprehensions about ways things exist. We have some mistaken views about how things exist, and these mistaken views are the cause of our suffering. And one of the mistaken views that he described was mistaking impermanent phenomena as permanent phenomena. And so let's delve a little bit into that. So how does mistaking impermanent phenomena as permanent phenomena give rise to suffering? So when we don't remember that things are changing from moment to moment, when we don't remember that things are transient, our perception is distorted. Our perception freezes. We start to think of things as solid, as unchanging, as stable. And when we do that, our attention becomes what's referred to in the text as inappropriate attention. We exaggerate. We attribute the object of our focus. We exaggerate the qualities of the object of our focus or attention. So, as an example, we meet this person and we develop a likeness for them, and we then forget that the person may change, or we may change, or the relationship may change. We forget all of that, and we think of this relationship or this person as a solid, unchanging person. We think of ourselves and our feelings as solid, unchanging feelings. And we exaggerate the qualities of this person and this relationship. And not just qualities. When we forget that this is fleeting, it can be fleeting, it can be impermanent, we make it bigger than what it really is. And then change may occur. Change, in fact, inevitably occurs in many instances. But because we have developed this attachment and this clinging to this person or this phenomena or this object, suffering unfolds. So we thought of this thing as, or this relationship or this object, as the object that would always give us pleasure, that would always stay the same, and we would always stay the same. But when things change, we are not prepared, and we start to suffer. So mistaking things and misperceiving things makes us exaggerate the qualities, which then gives rise to clinging and grasping. And when change occurs, we're not prepared for it, and we suffer. And there's many examples and instances in our lives. So when we are young, we are youthful, we are good-looking, we are fit, and we may start to identify with this view that we have of ourselves as being young and youthful and active and fit. And then we grow older and things change, and we're not as active anymore, and we don't have as much endurance, we can't do as much, and we get depressed and we are shocked and we can't believe, but that's not me, that wasn't me, how come I'm not able to do that anymore? And it becomes a cause of suffering. Or our jobs or our roles. We develop this huge business empire, or we have a career where we are valued, and we identify ourselves with the roles that we have. You know, I'm a successful nurse, I'm a successful teacher, I'm a successful businessman, and that becomes our identity, and we become attached to these identities. And when things inevitably change, we are at a loss, and we get disappointed. And the same thing in our relationships. This is the love of my life. If I can marry this person, I will be the happiest person. We will be happy for, what's the word? Happy ever after. And then things change. And it's not just the person, our minds change as well. Often I read, I laugh at, when these, it's happened a few times, it happens all the time, but when these young aspirants try to become politicians, and then they become politicians, and then someone digs up dirt on them, and then they say, oh, but 40 years ago when they were at uni, this is not what they thought. Today they're saying this, but 40 years ago they were saying this, so they're fake, and don't believe them. And I laughed to myself. I said, who thinks the same things? If you're thinking the same things after 40 years, oh, that's a sad story. You need to change. So things change all the time, but we have these fixed ideas, and we think of these things and people and ourselves as being fixed identities, but that's not reality. Or as parents, a number of us will be parents, we identify ourselves completely with our children's love, our children's affection, and we have, and we expect things from them, and we have hopes for them, but then they grow up, and then they become their own people. And, things that they do for themselves may not align with things that we had, wanted for them, and everything comes crashing down. So it's not the child's fault. It's us clinging to expectations, to plans. But that's not reality. Or we're going on this holiday, and we're waiting at the airport, and we are completely looking forward to the trip, and then there's an announcement that the flight is, 2 hours late, or it's cancelled, or the world comes crashing down. I mean, sure, it's inconvenient, but it's not the end of the world, and it's not a catastrophe, and it can happen. So the idea really is to have a realization of how things really exist, and that we are in denial most of the time. We stick to things, and we stick to fixed ideas, and every time we seek them, they should be there. And if they're not there, our world comes crashing down, and we suffer. So this is the beginning of our suffering. So clinging to permanency, looking for permanency in a world of transience and impermanence. The problem is not with the change, the problem is in us not being prepared for it. So Buddhism doesn't say to not enjoy relationships or not enjoy being beautiful and active. It just says beware that things might change and be ready for it. It just means that we improve our resilience, and we're more prepared for it. I don't know how many of you have heard of, we're running out of time. So Thich Nhat Hanh was a very well-known Vietnamese monk, and he has given some amazing teachings, which I encourage you to listen to. And he once gave the analogy of a walk in a forest. And he said, if you're going for a walk in the forest, and you don't know it's a forest, and you think you're walking in the botanical gardens, and you're admiring the foliage and the lovely blue sky and the sunlight filtering through the trees and the leaves, and suddenly a bear appears in front of you, and you are will freak out. We're not prepared to see a bear. On the other hand, if we know we are walking in a forest, we can still enjoy the walk, But when a bear appears, we're not completely, we may still be scared, but we kind of not caught completely off guard. So it's about being prepared for the bear. I did have another meditation to take us through this, but we've run out of time. That's okay. So I think what I'd wanted to convey today was that transience or impermanence is in the nature of existence and human condition, and that the transience or the change is not the cause of our suffering, but resisting the change is the cause of our suffering. But we've also glimpsed the possibility of freedom, that if we try not to resist change, or if we try not to stop the change, but if we welcome it with wisdom, if we are prepared for it, we can hope to lead happier lives. And we'll talk more in the next session and the one after that about how, I promise you, that's the end of impermanence and suffering. The next two sessions will hopefully be about how to use the idea of impermanence for liberation or freedom from suffering, or starting to live happier lives. Any questions or comments or thoughts? If there's anyone that hesitates to ask questions in a public forum, feel free to write them and give them to me. Sorry, did you want to say something?
Yeah. So this idea of change, was it something that necessarily is part of like day-to-day life, like in your book, or could that manifest as part of a crisis or something rather turbulent, like something a little bit more major?
So I guess the idea, the Buddhist idea, is that transience exists every day in everything, but sometimes the moment-to-moment change of the transience can lead to turbulence or more crisis-like situations in life. But the idea, I guess what we're saying is that if we realize that things can change, perhaps we are able to deal with that crisis, or what we see is that crisis situation with more resilience and more understanding. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other thoughts? Or that's okay. So we'll stop here then for the evening, and we'll just take a moment to dedicate. So any positive merit that we have accumulated by spending this hour together with a positive intention, thinking about Buddhist thoughts and ideas, we dedicate to whatever motivation you had set for yourself. So we'll stop here for the evening. There's tea and coffee and cake. I will hang around for a little bit longer if anyone has any feedback or comments. But otherwise, I hope to see you next week. Thank you very much.